My name is Alice Bolton-Breeze and I am one of the directors and the creative producer for Assembly House. It was a group of graduates from Leeds Arts University, or as it was then, Leeds College of Art, who all wanted to kind of continue to work together, to have a community of artists and have studio space, and there just wasn't a lot of provision for that. And they also needed it to be really cheap because they were graduate artists. So worked with another organisation to get the lease for this building, which was basically semi-derelict at the time, put a lot of work into it, but it meant the price was right. And then after about a year, I believe, formalised that to become a CIC to sort of formalise that partnership between all of them.
I'm Camilla Stacey and I am the Gallery and Artist Residency Manager. It was set up in 2011 by Rose Hatcher, who's our director, and she found there was an empty scallop processing factory in Falmouth Docks, and Falmouth Wharfs, she took that over to create an art space. It was very, very derelict, and I think there were freezers that still had grossness in, so she got people in to help her clear it out. It was about 7 years ago that we moved here because they had to move out of that venue because there was work being done, the building was being sold, so they moved here. We did a crowdfunder to get some money just to sort of pay the rent, and then the whole building was just a shell. It had been used to store boats in. We don't know what it was used for originally, but so we had to sort of build everything from scratch, really.
So I'm Kat Bagg and I'm the Programme Coordinator at CAST, which is the Cornubian Arts and Science Trust. About 12 years ago, Teresa Gledo, who is our Chair of Trustees, saw this incredible Passmore Edwards building, which had been boarded up, and just looked at it and thought, this should be artist studios. I know this kind of incredible Victorian architecture, high ceilings, north facing, and it's so sad to see it boarded up and unused. And she managed to gather a group of benefactors who were able to purchase the building, and that's how it began. I'm
Joseph Cox and I'm the studio manager at Juice Studios. So as part of the redevelopment of this whole area of the street, so the fruit market, there was a requirement to have artistic provision within the remit of the development. And that's a connection between the council and Wykeland, who are the private developers of the area. So because of that, they were looking to basically have a set of studios as part of the offering around here. There was some funding that was got. I wasn't involved at this point, but some funding went out, which was Coastal Communities Fund, and they used that to basically then push the project forward and look at what the space will be, how it will work. At that point, it was just artist provision, probably studios, but not sure at that point. And then we undertook a bit of a research project and looked at other spaces and developed it and worked out what it could be, and then worked with the architects to kind of do the space and make it right, and then eventually open.
So I'm Julie Norburn and I'm the founder and CEO of Art for Space, and I founded it 25 years ago with two co-founders who have now left. I think I was the driving force to set this up and then it's funny when you have an idea and very passionate about it, and then it was like a magnet how I attracted my two co-directors who brought their own skills. But at the time I was not particularly lost career-wise, but really hungry to find something that I really wanted to spend all my time on. And I've come from a teaching background, an art therapy background, and I've just done a lot of travelling. I've been travelling the world for 8 years, and during that I was involved in many art projects and really looking at folk art and how arts is a healer across all arts and cultures. So when I landed back in London in my early 30s, I absolutely knew that I needed to set up a centre that was all about social change through the arts, full stop, and it still is. I'm going back 25 years ago and I got the Prince's Trust from the Prince, who's now the King, a set-up grant of £50, and it was to buy our first setup grant of £50, but this is 25 years ago. Anyway, I had no money, I just had a vision and the passion for it, but it was scrabbling about bits of money, and probably for the first 10 years working for free, because, you know, any funds, we were quite good at funding then, small pots of money, always been entrepreneurial and business, but everything was just fed back into the business. So setup was limited funds, I didn't have a magic wand, and just keep going, because if you're driven, you get there in the end with a more sustainable model, right? Because we don't always want to be working for free. First 10 years was difficult, pouring everything back in, so we should, great, building it up. And then the next 10 years was very much grant heavy, because it was brilliant. Grants seemed easier to get. We were doing quite good. 75% of our work was grant funded. We were like, oh right, as long as we write a good bid, you know, this place can go on funding. And then COVID hit, and then after COVID, we found the landscape, if you like, of funding so difficult now. It's very competitive. A lot of the government money's gone, and you know, it's still out there. So we had to change our business model to become more, set up a trading arm. So really looking at becoming less reliant on funding and looking at what resources and assets we've got here. And I must say we've now got an amazing business model, because it's a mixed income one.
So my name's Alexandra, and I'm the residency and studio manager here, which means looking after all of our artist residencies and short-term studio use, as well as our long-term tenants.
I'm Chris Hibbert. I'm the manager of the trust that owns the studios, and I kind of did this job on my own for most of the time I've been here. Thank goodness Alexandra's come along to keep a bit of sanity into it. The last owner was an artist, and he was really, you know, very keen that it carried on being artist studios, and he arranged for its sale to a charity that was set up to basically manage and look after the studios. And it just having a charity owns it, it just means that it gives it a security, and so we are artist studios.
Hi, I'm John Wakeman. I am Artistic Director here at East Street Arts. We are in one of our buildings, Patrick Studios, which is the first of 3 buildings that we have here. So this one was opened in 2004, after being in a capital phase for 4 years that process took. And then we have here with us a convention house, which I think came in about 2018. We bought that. And then we have the art hostel, which came along in 2019, just in time for COVID. A 60-bed backpackers hostel, international backpackers hostel that we have on the site here as well. This was a social club. This was St Patrick's Social Club, the building originally. The convention house was the nunnery, the convent, and the art hostel was the parochial house. Okay, so how long have we got? It came about because myself and Karen, so Karen's my partner, wife, we had studied ceramics. She did it in Cardiff, I studied in Harrogate, then Sunderland, and in Harrogate she was a technician. That's where we met. And when we were in Sunderland, she was up for my final year, we left Sunderland. We had full intentions to stay, but it was awful, so we came back, nothing against Sunderland. We moved to Leeds and couldn't find anything that we wanted to move into as a studio space. So knowing nothing about what we did or what we were doing, we rented 2,000 square foot at the top of a mill, and that's where we started, and just had 600 quid and put it down as a deposit on that. And then we didn't do anything for 3-4 months, because you don't, and then the rent was due again, and then we thought we'd best do something. And we had full intention of setting up as a ceramic space, but then it only really became apparent that we just needed artists and we needed to build some spaces. So it was really a very DIY-led project, cold, no heating, and we basically set up with three elements. Was obviously the workspace, second was a communal space where artists could mix, and third being some resource, whether that be space or equipment. And we had a kiln and a darkroom initially, and those were the things we just felt like were really important to have those things there. And then the fourth luxury item was really a showing or exhibition space. We started with 6 artists. By the time we left, we had 50 artists in the building and a large project space, massive project space. And we just take artists from any sort of practice. We weren't particularly worried about artist practice or what they did. There were 2 other sides to what we did, so quite practical. There was a very practical side, which I did, building spaces, looking after projects, putting on bits of exhibitions and stuff. And there was another side, which Karen also got involved with them, but Karen also did a lot of advocacy work, and she went and engaged with the city as a whole. So she made connections with the council, the Arts Council, and that was a super important part of what we did, was making that. And part of it was also Karen made connections with other studio organisations in the city. So we kind of created a network of organisations, which then also went off and had a life of its own. Being in Leeds at that time, there was virtually no visual arts kind of infrastructure below Leeds City Art Gallery. There were about 3 or 4 studio groups. The city was dominated by dance, opera, performance, and that's how the city had been led. So there was no visual arts kind of infrastructure, and there was a gap, and we moved into it. And that's really been our philosophy. If there's a gap for artists or organisations to move into, we move into it, and we think that's a really important thing, and it's being able to spot where those gaps are.
My name's Luke Perkins, and my role is studio manager here at Turning Earth Leighton. And it's my job to wear as many hats as possible. So Turning Earth has 3 public access studios. That's our Hoxton site, the site here in Leighton, and the one in Highgate, which is newly opened. And we also have a professional studio around the corner from here in Leighton. And the original site was just the one, it was Hoxton, and that opened up about 10 years ago now. And that really came across from that American model. In the US, they have a lot of membership studios, and there really wasn't much of that happening, particularly in the UK, but not at all in London really. So Hoxton opened up, and it was an excellent time, I think, when people wanted to get in touch with something physical, something man-made, and very quickly filled up. Apparently when it first opened, it was a bit like Glastonbury. There was like queues of people waiting to sign up for membership, which was excellent. So very quickly the company expanded and opened up this site about 7 years ago, and it's just continued growing since.
My name is Carolina, and I'm a co-director here at Strix. The council got in touch with us, the property department, and they started showing us the buildings. From when we signed the agreement in principle to getting the keys and actually signing the lease, it took 17 months. That would never happen in a private world. You would have the lease literally straight away next day. The vision for this building was to have it open all the time so people could come in. Because with Digref site, it's different because we only have it open when we have a funded program there. Otherwise, it's just for studio holders to use.
My name is Philip Markin, and I am one of the co-originators of Open Source Arts. Began as a place for people to make new work, and that was people who were working on the fringes or the grassroots. It wasn't people who were in their 4th or 5th round of Arts Council funding. It was people who were just really trying to push into the making a career in the creative and cultural sector. And I think that's really an important place to be working if we want to retain people in the sector, because actually people graduate from these colleges and institutions with fantastic degrees and like loads of positive experiences, but then as soon as they leave college, it's like all the facilities are gone. We funded it through the income from our circus, and we funded it through the income from our events business, and also some income through my consultancy.
So CAST exists to promote appreciation, participation and learning in the visual arts, and to encourage cross-disciplinary dialogue across arts and sciences and regional, national and international exchange. And we see ourselves as being a sort of hub for arts community and local community, providing active programming and workshops.
So the main aims of our organisation are to support early career artists, and that can mean a lot of different things. A lot of the time it is people graduating from an arts type of degree, but we've also got a lot of people who have come to us without kind of that formal education, prison leavers, people new to this country, quite a lot of single parents who are maybe coming back into quite a different landscape than what they might have been in before, and people who've always done creative things maybe as more of a hobby, although I hate that word, but are trying to move into like actually it being their kind of professional main bit of their career.
So primarily to offer facilities and space to creatives and artists in the Hull and East Yorkshire area, where they can work and connect and develop and grow, and yeah, that's kind of the main thing, is just to make sure they've got space they can do their thing and be creative.
So our main aims is the same values that I set up 25 years ago, which is using the arts to bring people together for connection and well-being, but also looking at social equality, and I think arts is a brilliant tool for that. And actually over 25 years and still work to be done, there's still a social divide that's too big for me, and I work hard to change that gap.
Well, at the most basic level, it's to put artists into workspaces. So it's to support artists in affordable, resourced spaces that are clean, dry, warm occasionally. We wanted to leave a legacy, and that was what was most important. That's what drove us.
We have everyone from through the doors, from someone who has never even looked at a piece of clay, let alone made something from it, to people who've been making for 20 years. And I think in terms of the aims of the company, I think that's a real core component, is incubating this community of makers.
Yeah, the main aim is to support the grassroots, and it is to give people this kind of like landing pad whenever they graduate, and also to be deliberately not siloed into one art form.
Well, it's always been like Rose, it was very important to her that it was community focused, and it wasn't this kind of like white cube, hands off kind of space. So we're a community interest company, and community is really the key of what we do here. We want to provide affordable studio spaces, affordable gallery, so people can show their work.
The building was originally built for the pilchard fishing industry, early 1800s, and about 1885 artists came down to St Ives, and so artists and fishermen have been sharing this building ever since. We reckon this is the oldest artist studio in the country. And it's been studio space for 140 years, I guess, now.
The main aims are to help people feel less isolated, to showcase work by artists that don't normally get seen,